All right. Hi, and welcome to the Best Fleets podcast. I have with me today the two-time overall winner of the Best Fleets Hall of Fame Stratosphere Award, Garner Trucking. So welcome to all of you. I just want to give you a little bit of history about the Stratosphere Award. We created it for the Hall of Fame. So when we started putting fleets into the Hall of Fame, they wanted their own award. And so we introduced that the second year of the Hall of Fame. And funnily enough, back to back, Garner Trucking has won it both times. So in order to be in the Hall of Fame, you have to be a top, you have to be in the top 20 for 10 consecutive years, or you have to be there for at least 7 plus an overall award. And what happened with Garner is that they won the award on their 6th year. So in the 7th year, they got put into the Hall of Fame where they just continued to keep winning things. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what I'd like to do today, and what I'm really interested in doing is we are joined by Tim Chrulski, who is the COO of Garner Trucking, the El Presidente herself, Sherri Garner Brumbaugh, who is with us as well, and a very special guest, because Tim and Sherri I've talked to before, but I haven't talked to Brian Wildman, who is a driver for Garner and who is going to give us a little bit of the driver's perspective, which I'm really excited to do. So welcome everybody. I'd like to start with I just want to start with you, Sherri, because, and I love your car, love the NASCAR decoration. I know that you can see a little bit on the end where is that where the gas can is, or the
Yeah,
gas tank is, where
yeah,
our logo, the
yeah.
police
That's
logo?
prime real estate right there. If you watch a NASCAR, they're fueling at the pit stops. You'll see that spot quite often, probably more than any other spot on the car. So you've got prime real estate right there.
Yes, I'm very excited. I always get really excited when the first time that you showed me the car design, I was like, oh my God, we're on NASCAR. And it's on, oh, I can't remember the driver's name because I'm not a
Well,
big.
it was Coil of Joy the first years that we were a premier sponsor, and then this last year, Justin Haley came in, and we have Best Fleets on the driver's suit too, the fire suit.
So I love that. I think it's great. It's great for the program. But like, why do you do that? Like, why do
Well,
you put it?
truckers, NASCAR, it goes together. But really, it's a bit selfishly, it starts with me and the relationship I had with my dad. We used to go to NASCAR races as a family back when I was a kid, and we loved NASCAR. He loved NASCAR, and we just had fond memories. He would get a hoot out of this. He would just love. He would be there with us. Uh, you know, we did it because we don't bring customers along. It's very hard to get customers just to go out and get a cup of coffee anymore. Um, and that's fine. But I really did it for my drivers and my employees we work hard. So let's play hard. Let's have some fun. And not only is it for the employee, but I want them to bring a family or a friend along with them. So it's 2 VIP weekend to come away, and I can wine and dine them for a weekend with a hotel stay and take them out to dinner and then enjoy some NASCAR. But it oddly enough, it's some of the folks, the employees that go, they're like, I have one driver in particular. He was like, I'm not really into NASCAR, but my father-in-law just, nothing happens on Sunday. And they come to the race together, and it's an opportunity for them to connect and have a great experience as a family member or a friend or anything like
That's
that.
awesome. So
Yeah.
you're kind of sharing the wealth there.
Yeah, and people like I really don't want to go to this NASCAR race. I don't know what it's. I don't like NASCAR, but they go and they're like they're a huge fan. It's an experience. It's fun.
I know that because I'm not a fan of NASCAR. Sorry, I hope that doesn't like
No, I'll get
decrease
you to a
the.
race. I'll change you.
Well, I know that somebody in Canada actually like talked to me about it, and said, I saw Best Fleets logo in NASCAR. I saw it. I saw it. And I was like, yeah, Garner has it on there. And he's part of he's one of the top, he works for a company that's part of the top 20, and he was really excited about it too. So kind of going on a little bit about Tim, what does, give me kind of in one sentence, I'm going to make you keep it short, about how did you manage, or how did Garner manage to do this? You basically won 3 times in a row. So how did that happen?
That's a fantastic question. The short answer, I don't know if I can do it in just a sentence, but the short answer would be the Best Fleets program in total is what helped us to do that. Being able to take the information each year and understand what's important to our company, our culture, what's important to our drivers, what's important to other drivers, what your organization is seeing as important, what other organizations are doing that they feel is important, and taking those pieces and making something that makes sense for us year over year over year over year.
So that sort of continuous improvement cycle you're taking very serious. What I really like to hear is that people are using the information, and this may come up as backwards, but this is the guidebook for this year, the Best Fleets to Drive For book is basically what we call it. And if you want to get a copy of it, you can go to the Best Fleets to Drive For website. And on the homepage, you scroll down to the bottom and you can download it there. So I'd like to talk a little bit to Brian about your history with Garner. When did you actually start driving for, well, 2 questions. One, how long have you been driving? So what's your origin story? Like how did you come to be a driver? And then how did you start driving for Garner?
I just started my 8th year in the industry, and actually I started with Garner.
Oh.
And my first year was 2017, the first year we won the Best Fleets to Drive For. So I like to think that I had a little to do with it, but a little part of between 80 and 100 drivers, depending where we were at the time. But no, it was I was looking for a career that I could pretty much say farewell to the workaday world, and I was in other industries for a number of years, financial services and insurance and other things, and but this was right for me. I actually went to school to be a diagnostic imaging person, but I did not want to be in a basement of a large facility doing those radiography things.
Ultrasounds.
So yes, ultrasounds are awesome. They're so important. And I was actually on the kind of the computed tomography side of things. That's where I was headed. But in circumspect, and I come from my wife is in healthcare, and her daughter is a nurse practitioner. So it just wasn't, I got into the school and everything. It just wasn't for me. So I was looking for that thing that got me out. And, I remember that old adage, but if you're sitting in a classroom, you can never, like, off in space, you're thinking about what is as you're sitting in a school classroom, and the teacher goes, you're never going to get anywhere if you're looking out a window all day. And I was like, well, actually, it worked out.
That's so really, when I asked Tim, like, what's the secret? He should have said Brian is really what helped us. So for the next time, Tim,
I'll make mental note of that.
remember that. I think that is crazy that you came from diagnostic imaging and finance and stuff like that and ended up as a driver. And do you regret that, or do you ever think, oh, I wish
Not at all.
that is amazing.
This has been an amazing place to work. It's like family. I know it's trite to say that, but it is like Sherri's like family, and Tim and everybody there wants to do their best for each other. And so, there are times where, yeah, it gets stressful, and there's times where routes don't work out and things fall through and you're sitting in a receiver or shipper or whatever. That's trucking. But the Stratosphere Award, I agree with Tim. It makes, and Sherri, it makes a difference because we're acknowledged. The acknowledgement of what we're doing out here is key, and to have that happen at an industry level among peers is something we can take great pride in, and we're so we're so grateful that we have a program like that where that recognition is there. We get recognized at Garner, and that's that's as almost as important. It really is, because that's a daily thing. That's a driver of the year and ones to watch for and fleet elites and all of that. That's within the Garner program there. But it's special to be in this program.
So that's interesting that you were there the first year that Garner won the overall award. And so I think you won the overall, Sherri, was it the 5th year? 6th year? Oh, no, 7th.
Yeah, 6th year going to 7th year. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just said that and then I forgot. So when you started at Garner, like, did you hear about Best Fleets, or what did you know about Best Fleets when you started?
I was trying to remember, Sherri, and Tim, you might help me. It's been a while. We've had a lot to go on in the last 8 years, but I think, if I recall, I was given maybe an opportunity to participate in a survey early on, and I think that might even been 2017 or 18. I believe I was. It was. I think I'm remembering that correctly. It's been a while, but the survey came through, and they. Then I was actually part of a nomination process too. I believe So I've kind of touched different aspects of that. Thankfully to ownership and management's allowed me that opportunity. We've got a lot of fine drivers. I'm just one.
No, well, you're the one wearing the hat right now, so. Um, but I'm interested in your perspective of the process, and it doesn't have to be like when you first started, but drivers are often skeptical of the process and what fleets have to do. And I know very well what the fleets have to do from my perspective, but as a driver, do you ever talk about, well, I guess that's not, there's kind of two questions. One is, what is the process from the driver's point of view? Like what happens at Garner when, September rolls around and we have to do this again?
Right. So I think the things that we were acknowledged on prior to having a driver's advisory board, for instance, having those special things. Sherri and Tim are always looking for, and others in our office as well. They're always looking for, how can we get better? What we can do to improve, and that really passes through. The open door policy that Garner has is I think sets the tone for that. Sherri and Tim are both very approachable. You have I'll say military. We have a lot of veterans in, and of course, chain of command in military is very important, right? So that structure is there, and I think a lot of our ex-military, they kind of see a chain of command. They want to kind of go through that process, but having an open door policy really makes that, they're approachable. Management is approachable. Ownership is approachable. That's huge. So to be able to talk out issues when they occur, and bubble up new ideas that might for a 65-year-old company, lots changing now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Basics are there. The tires still meet the road. You still hold a steering wheel. But with the advent of these tractors now, with the technology that's aboard and what's coming, I have to tell you, Jane, real quickly, I got on Grok 3 because I was hearing a lot of people talking about, X Grok and 3. So I was asking, what is the future for me as a 65-year-old driver in this industry for the next 5 years? What can I expect to have a job doing what I'm doing now? And I gave a little background of what I did. And it came back to me and said, well, as you're approaching what is termed retirement age, whatever that is, as over the next 5 years, the technology will be such that the advanced driving will allow you to be closer to home base as you work. Okay. So what, it's taking, how does the structure of long distance versus short runs and that type of thing.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it was interesting.
I have never heard anybody asking, AI for their impression of, what's going to happen to driving in the next few years. But that is interesting. Do you find that so Tim and Sherri, when they talk about Garner during a Best Fleets interview, are not allowed to say open door policy. They're not allowed.
I
And
thought you were going to electrocute him immediately. I thought that's what was going to happen.
No, I always say that drivers can absolutely say open door policy, but as the people doing the questionnaire and the interview, you're not allowed to say it. But the idea of the open door policy, when I hear drivers say that, or when I see it written down mostly, is that it means that you do feel like you can be heard. And so are you part of the driver advisory board?
Yes, I'm actually chairman of the board for the next 2 years.
Oh, nice. Was that a difficult, was there a process to get, how did that happen?
The way it's structured is that the prior chair duty in the second year of their administration is to basically help bring along their replacement
Successor.
at end of year 2.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's cool. Do you, so when you are, as, the driver advisory board, do they have any input into, actually, maybe I should go to Sherri and sort of, how do you get input from the driver advisory board when you're doing that, like when you're going through the best place, process? Do you go to the driver advisory board specifically about that, or is that just kind of a general, you get ideas from them?
I think it's a back and forth general ideas. We'll glean some ideas from the book and from our scoring. We'll sit down and kind of do a debrief on our scoring, how, what are some other things that potentially other carriers are doing that might be a good fit, or we'll take an idea and we'll put a Garner spin on it. We'll do it the Garner way. As you know, our drivers advisory board is a little unique to others, but
Yes.
we'll take the ideas. We keep a running list to our drivers advisory board. We try to have them give us the ideas, but sometimes it's, hey, we think this might be a benefit. And is this something that, what I might seem as important isn't important to them, but there's something that I might see and from a peer or any, and we'll put that on the list and ask their opinion.
Brian, the other thing what I find, and this is unique to Garner, you're not going to find this anywhere else, is having a budget for the driver advisory board, basically being told, here, you got 20 grand you can spend.
Right.
What did you think of that when you first, when that first happened, and how do you decide what to spend it on?
That's a great question. You look at the amount. Number one, it's a very generous thing that's done, and it really, then you have buy-in from your members because they're like, hey, we've got some responsibility here with this amount of money. This is we could do a lot with this, and in fact, drivers' ideas, and as Sherri said, sometimes it's a management idea that says, what do you all think of this? So I think every member, as they kind of learn the process, as they go through, they say, hey, I was thinking we could put a toolkit together, and then somebody else has said, hey, I'll do some research on that. And they'll say, let's talk to our shop, see what a few tools are. We're not trying to load out 100 toolbox here, but or in the case of, we have a swap out station that was largely
Oh, I
built by,
remember.
yes, and that was a fantastic thing. The year, I think a year I came on the board, one of the decisions we had was we allowed for Sirius XM radios to go in the tractors, and that was a wonderful thing at the time. Now, a lot of people do podcasts now. You know, everything evolves, but that was very beneficial, and I still use that every day as a benefit from that, and that came from other there just been so many. The huge one was we named Vern Garner Driver's Lounge. That driver's lounge, it took time, and I was just on the tail end. I mean, it's been talked about for years and years, and they wanted to, Sherri wanted to do it, and Tim wanted to do it right, and they did, with input from drivers, but it took a while. But once it was there, I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful benefit to have that, and the drivers I think they do take care of it, just to have that available.
So that driver's lounge, I don't know if I know about that. I didn't know that it was named after your dad,
Yeah.
Sherri.
Yeah. We
So
call
how
it.
did um so I guess the drivers were involved in planning that? I don't know if that's a Sherri or a Tim question.
The
You haven't
answer's
gotten to
the
talk.
answer's yes, no matter who you ask.
Yeah. It was something, this is what was gleaned through surveys back in 2017 with our first applications with best fleets to drive for. It kept reoccurring. You know, we're here at the yard at, 6 o'clock on Saturday night, and we can't get into, the building's like Fort Knox,
Yeah.
and there's no access to the restrooms. And this kept coming up, year after year. And it's like, what are we going to do about this? We couldn't figure out an appropriate way to lock down the building. So we, or open up the building. So we build a new space, and so that it has 24, 365, 7 days a week. You can access it whenever the driver's here. And came from the driver's advisory board and say, hey, we should name that thing. And I was like, okay. And we called the driver's lounge. Like, oh, that's boring. We're better than that. And right away, and this group of drivers, and then we took a survey of all the fleet, of all the drivers. What would you like to name this? And resoundingly, it came back as Vern Garner Driver's Lounge. And this group of drivers, this era of drivers, this era of employees, they never met my dad. Certainly Tim did. There are a handful of folks on the admin side that knew my dad. I don't believe there was one driver that knew my dad. Maybe Terry Gagne,
Sherri Garner and Tim Cross.
And Tim Cross. There was like two.
Yeah.
And so to have that kind of legacy, I was overwhelmed from it. That he had long passed, and here they wanted his name on and knowing my dad, and I'm sorry, this is kind of a long, but knowing my dad, he said, don't put my name on it. It should be Vern and Jean Garner. And because if there wouldn't have been a Vern, if there wasn't a Jean being my mother. So I just toiled with that for a long, long time. And it just kept coming back as Vern Garner. And we added a little, his love for NASCAR, and we call it the Vern Garner Pit Stop.
Okay, now I need a picture of that.
Yeah.
We need a picture. You have another task. I think that's awesome. I think that's really lovely. I guess that kind of leads into celebration, because we talk a lot about best fleets in terms of the process that you have to go through, and then you have to do all of the interviews, and then we have blah, 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 blah. But when you're on the top 20, and especially when you win an overall award, I know that fleets celebrate. So Brian, is there, how do you celebrate as drivers?
It's challenging to get it all together in one place. So we have wonderful marketing. We have just tremendous ownership, very generous management, very generous. So what we do is we get hats, and we get things put on the side of the trucks because we want people to know, hey, this is something we celebrate. So it's celebrating in that way. It's celebrating among drivers as the being able to. It's celebrated in the newsletter. We talk to each other, hey, I see you're wearing your Best Fleets hat. Yeah. I need to get that. Or, I have last year's.
We have a
So
collection.
we have a collection, and then we get together when it's like, for instance, Driver Appreciation Week. We have the Technician Appreciation Week that follows that, but the Driver Appreciation Week, a lot of celebrating goes on there. We also have with the cookouts that happen. I guess we're getting ready to start those up in May. And that's a very generous thing that Garner does well. When you're coming through, hey, grab a hot dog, pizza, tacos, whatever it is going to be that day. They have some catered stuff come in. So yeah, celebration is important, and it's definitely Garner gives us the means when we come through to do that. Absolutely. And then of course we have the huge celebration in September at a large resort that we do our annual celebration.
Party.
Yeah, we bring the whole family together there. So that's and that's and I think we had the largest attendance, didn't we, Tim and Sherri?
Sure, yeah.
This past year. Yeah, just families just really got on that and enjoyed it.
So do you feel like, I know a lot of drivers feel like Driver Appreciation Week, you've got those 5 days or 7 days in, I can't remember the month, September, October, and that's the only time that anything happens. It seems like that Garner is celebrating all the time.
I think so. And a lot of times they're celebrating through the social media is huge. A lot of our younger drivers have really embraced that. I think we have one younger driver that's really set up a whole weather kind of thing where he's going and he's actually helping people. It's kind of like a combination rescue now. But yeah, he does that on his own. But yes, we have through social media, which is, again, our marketing area is just huge and very, very talented with our folks there, and allowing the opportunity to send videos out. There's drivers that are acknowledged through the videos. We'll have a training video, or we'll have celebratory. There's pictures we come through to get fuel there, and there's the outdoor big screen TV right there, and it's always turning information about celebrations. Here's our anniversary. Congratulations, driver. This is your anniversary. We're birthdays. I mean, it's just those things, and it's just a lot of little things that really do add up. And as well as the big celebrations, but the day to day is the thing that really keeps us, I think, motivated and going forward. Our families, we're motivated to make money, obviously.
Yeah.
Pay bills like everybody else, to take care of feeding our families and that. But it's nice to be recognized, and that does happen through. And again, it's amazing how much social media is really driving a lot of this now. People do like to see their picture up or their video or whatever. So
Tim, when Brian says the big TV outside, what's that?
So there's a long-standing rule here that our owners put forth, that when we communicate, we're going to communicate in at least 5 different ways, and that's just period. That's the way we do things. And then if there's additional ways we can do that, we do it. So several years back, we decided that rather than have a bulletin board out at the fuel pump, that we're going out and changing out some papers every once in a great while, we put an outdoor television out there that's broadcasting the important things that are going on with the organization. As Brian had mentioned, the birthdays and the holidays and anniversaries and all those special things, welcoming new drivers, kind of promoting those awards and things that happen, the successes of the drivers and their families, and the things that are going to be important specifically to the driver, rather than that, that greeting television that you might come into inside of an office that has other information on it that may be a bit more general. So it's a bit more specific to the driver and the things that are going to be important to them.
Oh,
Also,
awesome.
our top like MPG performers and things like that as well. Our top performers who's top, services, wind service, truck services, and, just some data sets for our drivers too.
Oh, nice. I like that whole, when we communicate something, we do it in 5 different ways. I love that. I don't think that I've ever heard that from you before. So, I find out, even though I thought I knew everything about you.
Mhm.
But no, I like that. I think that's a really awesome idea and something that I'm probably going to use elsewhere, because that is because it's true. You need to be able to, in order to get a message across, you can't rely on just one way. Is that the idea, Tim?
Absolutely is the idea. If you the worst possible thing that you could say to our marketing person is that, oh, I didn't know that, because there's no way you could miss it. You'd have to basically walk around with your eyes closed.
Oh, I love it. And is that true? That's true, Brian? You would
Absolutely. That's right. We do have the drivers that will say, I didn't know that. And but it's like, well, whose fault is that? Because it's there. Um, you know, I don't know if we're going to continue to do it, but one of the reasons we send a newsletter out, old school through the mail, is so the family members can know what's going on. And sometimes it's just easier for them, driver comes back, so glad to be home. It's like, and then they open it up and there's, what's going on. And sometimes the driver just, the family member wants to know. And we have every opportunity. Garner looks at a holistic approach with regard to our drivers.
And so spouses are actually, I didn't realize that the newsletter was going out to spouses as well, but that makes a big difference, because then even if the driver is not around or not paying attention, you have that person at home who gets informed.
That's right. It's
Also
very,
known as the boss.
yeah, that's right.
Well, most likely the driver has received a message either via in a truck, through, our connections there, or a text, or an email, as those things are very personal to an individual, where a newsletter in print form with a stamp comes home. And to your point, in between whether that driver is home or not. So, people receive their information in different ways. I still read a real book. I don't read an electronic book. And so you have to have those touches.
And so I didn't realize that it was actually mailed. I was thinking, because I'm on your list, and I don't think I can ever actually unsubscribe. Like, I think I'm stuck on that list forever. You're gonna come hunt me down. But I didn't realize it was getting mailed directly. So there's actual paper.
Yep.
That is old school, Sherri. Old
I
school.
know it. I know it.
I was actually telling people, about note taking, that I think is really important to take notes. And now there's all of these AI tools to take notes. And it's this, I feel like I'm ancient when I actually write things down. During a meeting, I will actually write things down. But anyway, no, we're not talking about me. We're talking about you guys. Um, so we're talking about celebrations, and you have actually driven, Brian, you have driven well, let me go back a little bit. That trailer that you mentioned, the Best Fleets trailer, but there's been a couple of different trailers, and also, well, you can see it on the car as well, but that's the kind of thing that Garner does. So what happens when you're driving that trailer with, it has Best Fleets all over it?
Well, it's an in-demand trailer, I can tell you that much. And I usually get a call from one of my buddies out here and say, "Hey, I got the best fleet Stratosphere. I got the trailer. I got it finally." Or so they'll, it's celebrated because it's a great. The graphics look incredible. It's just great. Plus, we get a lot of compliments for the Garner logo anyway, and just the way it's set up with all the color scheme is it just looks so sharp going down the road. I mean, it just really does. And so we do we celebrate having being able to pull that trailer. Makes you feel good.
So what would you say to people who think it's fake, who think it's not, like you're either, because we hear this all the time that, oh, the winners get picked for a variety of reasons, oh, they're a customer, oh, they're this, oh, they're that. What would you say to that?
Well, I mean, I know that it's an arduous process. There's quite the questionnaire to go through. I think it's, I was trying to remember the length. I can't, Tim, but it's like 40 pages or something, 30. I mean,
56 questions.
56. There we go. 56 questions. Yeah. There it is. There you go. So,
Oh, that's just the questions we put in there. There's
right, that's
more.
Oh,
right,
no.
there's more to
This
come.
is the
Yeah, after
questionnaire.
that. Yes. I remember going through, and so no, it is a process. The process is sound. It is data intensive for sure, and so I mean, from my standpoint, it looks like, hey, they're doing their due diligence in this whole matter here. So just in like what I see, what I touch out here.
What do you think of the driver survey? Actually, I've never really asked a driver about the driver survey. So this is your chance to say, some of the questions are dumb.
They're very insightful. Most of them are right pretty much over the target. I mean, things can always be improved, and I don't have it in front of me right now. Probably, if pressed, I would say that, hey, this is covering 95% of what it needed, but maybe you consider this, but it's definitely on point. You've been doing this quite a number of years. I think you've got good inputs.
Do you think that if people wanted to, they could be negative about, like if there was an actual issue with a fleet, do you think that they would have room to say that on the driver survey?
I think if our days change day to day. We can have a good day, we can have a bad day, as all of us. But especially out here driving, um, you hit a driver with a survey. Oh, we could have complete a survey, and that driver's had a bad day. I'm not sure. I would think that they would be a little bit more circumspect, and they would gather themselves and really take into account a fair evaluation of the way things usually are, as opposed to that maybe one bad day. So yeah, it could always be skewed, but I think generally we're professionals, and I think we would treat a professional survey with the same respect.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I absolutely appreciate that. Um, so I guess to sort of end all it, like, kind of finish off this, which it has been really interesting because things have come up that I really hadn't thought about. Um, in terms of keeping on with the process, or looking forward to next September. Do you have any final thoughts, Sherri, on that?
I don't know whose idea it was to have an award with the Stratosphere in the Hall of Fame, because I was looking forward to be in the Hall of Fame, and I know we had to work at it every year to get there, and I wanted to maintain that level. Tim and I were like, oh my goodness, an award for the Hall of Famers, but it seems appropriate because it keeps a competitive edge to it too. I want to be doing better. I don't want to get complacent with my drivers or with my business or my company. I want to stay relevant. So that means you have to stay engaged with what your peers are doing and being challenged by them. So, when it comes to September again, it's what we're thinking now, what are we doing? Can we do differently or better? What should we be doing? We don't want to rest on things that are not being utilized by our drivers, and just trying to get them to, in fact, I've taken our drivers advisory board and put a task force together of that drivers advisory board with 3 members to really dive into look at how showing our budget to them and saying, okay, we're spending money on this and this and this and Brian's a part of that. And I think he's having a little aha moments. I mean, they're business people too. They're business minded. They have their own personal budgets, and I welcome looking at our spending and saying, is that the right place to spend our money? Because I got to find more ways to get money in their pocket. That's at the end of the day, that's what I've got to do. And that's my job to make sure I can do that because I want to attract the best workforce. And
Wow. So that's an interest, like nobody has told me that before. That is very interesting. And I would be very interested to hear about how that goes in September, or I guess it'll be more like October, November.
it's a very vulnerable feeling. I'll tell you that, it's like, because we're privately held. I'm not
Mhm.
a public company. So, I'm really showing raw data here. This is what we spent money on. So
Yeah, that's crazy. But it's very interesting, and it will be interesting to see how that affects what you do. I think you're probably interested in seeing the results as well.
mhm, yeah.
So, Tim, do you have any last words?
Um, just to step back to the question that you had asked Brian regarding, is it fake? Um, I, without using all the words, I had a great conversation with Mark before we had the last segment at the Best Fleets um, uh, conference here just last month, and it was apparent to me that you really did want us winning again. So that
Okay,
tells
I will admit it. I was like,
I'm
no.
not saying you, Jane, as in
No,
you.
it
I'm saying
was.
as in the Best Fleets program. You really didn't have intent. You don't want a carrier winning that 2 years in a row because it could give out that type of an appearance. But the fact of the matter is that every carrier that participates gets it. When you stand on stage and you talk to those carriers that are participating in the program, they all get it. They all have that same philosophy, that same sort of feeling that it's bettering themselves, it's bettering the world for their drivers, and it's bettering the industry. And so if you have this complement of carriers of 30 to 150 carriers that are all a part of this process, how can it be fake? How can it be rigged?
I
There's my
love
2 cents for you.
I love it. Thank you, Tim.
I don't want to, I like the high bar that we set. I'm proud of that. But I don't want to diffuse any feelings of I can't get there because I thought that from the beginning on this program. I'll never be on this stage. I'm not as good as these other carriers that are on this stage. And I think about that every year when we apply.
I remember when you first started, and you definitely, I think what you did was use the process really well and look at what you said and what we said, and then look at that before and think about how you can change things and do that continuous improvement. So I appreciate you do like sort of sticking with it, like any fleet who sort of works on it and really is taking it to heart. I love it because I see fleets getting better. I see the progress that they make, and I've definitely seen the progress that you've made. And now that you're not the only 3-time winner, so you're kind of the latest 3-time winner. And what I remember Bison Transport, when they were the 3-time winner, Garth Pitzel said, bring it on. You want to beat us? Come on. We want to be beaten. We want to get better. And I think those were wise words from Mr. Pitzel. Well, I'd like to thank you all for, coming and talking to me today for this, and for, your insights into the program. And, like, September's coming up, so I'm hoping that I'm going to see you again next year.
Oh,
You too.
yeah.
Thanks so much.